Hello and welcome to the 35 Minutes of Heaven we call the D1Baseball Podcast. I am your host, Michael Patrick Rooney. Tonight's episode brought to us by our good friends at S2 Cognition. S2 Cognition delivers a revolutionary approach to helping athletes understand how in-game decisions impact their performance from youth levels all the way to the pros. I want to also say thank you to Pitch Logic, the system used by players, coaches, scouts, and instructors at all levels of play, from youth leagues to the big leagues. The easy-to-use and affordable technology makes the platform accessible to every player at every level. All the metrics and features used at the highest level of baseball. See pitchlogic.com for more information. Tonight, I am joined by one person, the great Kendall J. Rogers. The theme of this episode, KR, is going to be toughness and charisma because it's week 6, or we've just completed week 6, and some of our teammates, Zebby Barrels, Fitty Barrels, you guys got a lot of nicknames, but not a lot of endurance. And Joseph J. Healy, they needed the week off, KR. They're on a pitch count. They're going up to drive line, see if they can't get sharp. But it's you and me.
Go talk to Kyle Bodie. He'll take care of them.
That's right. We got to stretch them out. They were training as relievers, so
they need those little plyo balls. I think Aaron's in his office right now throwing a plyo ball against the wall.
We sent Joe and Fitzy out for velocity training. I like it. Actually, I did listen to Fitzy was on the ACC Etc. podcast today, and he was excellent. It was they had a really good.
He was actually excellent.
Oh, I thought he was phenomenal.
Wow. Okay.
Yeah. That's
what about Pat James? How was PJ on that one?
Pat was great. What did and Darren Vaught had a great nickname for Pat. It was like Pat. It wasn't Pat-tastic, although that would be good too. I don't know. I'll have to
you know who Pat reminds me of? This is a very strange comp. So I go back to Sunday. I'm watching Dallas Baptist and Sam Houston. Dallas Baptist didn't play very well. You know, Dan Hefner after the game's like, yeah, well, you picked literally like the one of 2 games we played this year that were absolutely horrible. So thanks for coming.
No.
But he had a smile on his face. Like, no one smiles, win or lose, more than Dan Hefner. Like, I think he's just an eternally happy person. And I feel like Pat James is the Dan Hefner of our company. Like, no matter what, Pat James has a smile on his face.
Yes, he loves it. It's funny in the fall when I do those Sunday night podcasts, like that's a big ask for Pat. Like, this is his job. He's having to work on a Sunday night. I mean, I guess we all have to do that, but he does it with a smile on his face. He listens to those things. He's an incredible human. We're all in on Pat James.
Yeah.
Even though he's got he's rubbing it in our face with the hair. But Kendall, do you watch?
Well, exactly. Yeah, Pat's got me in the hair category. I'll give him that.
Do you watch Hayden Schott of Texas A&M has implemented fungo golf on Mondays? Monday is the traditional day off in college baseball. Have you tuned into that at all?
So I saw it the Monday night before they played Texas. And I remember texting a Texas friend of mine and going, I don't think this looks very good for Texas. Like, if they're playing fungo golf on Twitter the night before they play their rival, they're feeling pretty good about themselves. And what happens the next day, I forget now what they won, 11-2 or something.
Yep. A&M's got a good vibe. They and of course Hayden Schott is like best buds with Lord Tubington, as he likes to call him, Jace Laviolette.
I still have not actually gone back and found out where that even comes from. Well, I refuse to call him Lord Tubington, though.
Yeah, or you could just call him Lord Tubby, as they call him. I think, if I understand it correctly, when he was an underclassman in high school, he hadn't grown height-wise yet, and he was like a kind of a bad-bodied, pudgy kid, and then he just grew, and the athleticism exploded, obviously. But yeah, I guess he was tubby as a kid, is where it comes from.
Yeah, he's definitely not tubby anymore.
No, he's not. So, hey, KR, so it's just you and me tonight. We might have a special guest pop in, but who knows what can happen. Here's what I want to do. I want to hear what you saw this weekend. Sure. I want you and I to pick one of the coolest things we've seen in college baseball this year. I've got a menu I'm going to share with you. You can go off the menu. You can special order your omelet, but I've got a menu of things I think are just really cool. And then if we have time, I'm going to pick some of the leagues, and like, for instance, I'm going to say forget record, but if you could pick one roster in the ACC, for example, going forward, what would you pick? And the reason I say that is because there's no super team in college baseball. We just have all this chaos. And so I think what that's going to lead us to is almost an anything can happen in the postseason. So that's what we're going to do. At the end, we're going to do kind of pick some rosters that we think, forget records. This is a roster I'd want to ride with. But let's start with what you saw this weekend, because you saw a couple different things.
Yeah, no doubt. I mean, I'll start in College Station. Saw Mississippi State and A&M, and honestly, I thought it was a big weekend for Mississippi State more than anybody. I think if you look at State and what they did against LSU a couple weeks ago, they won the series opener. They stormed back and almost won the second game against LSU, and then they come back on Sunday and just rough them up. And I think when you look at that weekend, I was curious to see. Emotionally, the LSU series was a big weekend for them. So I was kind of curious to see how State did moving forward, going on the road. You're not at the dude with 14,000 people of your friends there. So how will they fare on the road? And honestly, they lost 2-3. They lost the Sunday game 6-1. But I came away thinking, like, man, these guys, like Aaron, like these guys have staying power. I think offensively, they really work a lot of counts. Hunter Hines is kind of in the zone again, which is, I think back, I want to say like his OPS at one point was like 660, something outrageously low. It's now almost 900 again. So he's obviously red hot. Dakota Jordan works counts. Amani Larry works counts. Connor Husak does a really nice job in the lineup. He's got pop. And so I like their lineup a lot. I think pitching-wise, it sounds like just from reading Steve Robertson, a few of the writers, it sounds like Nate Doe might actually be back this weekend potentially. And I tell you what, if he's back, not only do I think this is a team that can make a regional, I think this is a team that can host a regional, because when you look at their pitching staff, you look at Evan Sierra and the job that he did on the front end of the rotation over the weekend against A&M's lineup. Obviously Cal Steven, after he got ripped up against LSU, was really good against A&M. And even Durangelo in the final game, he had electric stuff. It's just he had a couple of mistakes to Braden Montgomery, ball game, see a game over. And so, and then you look at the back in their bullpen, Nolan Stevens gives up the grand slam to Gavin Grahovic. And then he actually, was on Thursday night, the rest of the outing was actually pretty good. So, they get Dome back. It takes a little bit of pressure off of, all those guys. And all of a sudden, man, like the complexion of that team is deep offensive lineup, a lot of pitching options, and 2, 3, 4 legitimate high level power arms in that pitching staff. So I really like the cut of their jib. I think if you look at just their overall approach is just a hard nosed team. It's like Jim Schlossnagle told me after the game. That is a way different team they had last year, just in terms of their body language. And so I'm one of those people that when Mississippi State's better, it's better for college baseball. And I think they're here to stay. I think for A&M, we've talked about A&M before, so I'll be quick on them. I thought it was a little bit of a gut check weekend for them, because they go to Florida. They leave a lot of runners on base in series finale against the Gators, a series, frankly, they probably should have won. And they go back home. Grahovic gets the big hit on Friday. Steven keeps them in check on Saturday, or on Friday, excuse me. And then on Saturday, the series finale, they go out there and Braden Montgomery kind of leads the way. And then, of course, Justin Lampkin and Ryan Prager, the big storylines for the weekend. Both those guys I thought were just average at best against Florida. Both of them threw extremely well, especially Lampkin on Saturday against the Bulldogs. He had great movement on his breaking ball. And that's one thing Chris Lemonis told me after the game, is like, man, that was big-time stuff. And, he throws 90-93, but that breaking ball was big time. It had a lot of late break to it. It was moving a lot. And so all of a sudden now you look at A&M, they were able to win a series at home. Didn't have to use Chris Cortez, who, by the way, was their nastiest pitcher against Florida 2 weekends ago. Didn't even have to throw him. That gives you an idea of where this pitching staff is. And a lot of credit goes to, Max Weiner, who's done a tremendous job with the pitching staff that, frankly, was bad last year. So A&M, I think we both kind of thought they had staying power. But that's a team that looks like a championship contender to me. I don't think State's that far behind. I hesitate to call them a national championship contender, but I tell you what, man, they're a really good team, but it doesn't get easier this weekend as they go to Florida.
KR, so on A&M, let's think about the postseason for a second, and a lot of things roles can change between now and then, but like I'm comfortable with the rotation. And so here's the question. If they were in a weekend series at the end of the year and they're like, you're going to shrink your pitching staff to the guys that are hot and confident and all that stuff. Who are their three go-to relievers? Is it that Aschenbach kid? Is he in there?
Yeah, yeah, Austin Beck would be their go-to guy, and it's kind of funny. Like I call him a poor man's Michael Roth, and the reason why I say that is because he goes out there from the left side, and it's like 87, 89, or
Mm-hmm.
86, 88, and the breaking ball like from behind home plate like isn't special, but he gets like weak hit after weak hit. He gets strikeouts, and he's just one of those guys, man. Like just spins it right. I don't know if it's extension or what, but he just does a really nice job for them. Kind of, Jim kind of put this a really perfect way the other day. He's like with Evan, he's like, you know exactly what you're going to get. Like he's not going to get hit hard. I don't think I saw him get hit hard once last year, and I don't think it's happened this year. So, that's not to say he's going to go out there and get 14 strikeouts out of the bullpen, but like he's not going to, he's not going to give up a 4 or 5 spot. So, he's the one guy. Shane Sadeo, another talented lefty for them. Until the last week or so has been really good. They do need to get him right. He has not been great, in my opinion, over the last week and a half. He's gotten hit a little bit hard. So they need to kind of rein him in. But, Cortez to me is kind of their X factor. And if you remember in the preseason, I think we all kind of said that, like for them to be a championship caliber club, even with their offense, like Chris Cortez, a premium arm, was going to have to step up. And, he's a guy that the last couple of times out has been outstanding. And, that's a security blanket for them, because if you get into a regional and, let's say you get upset in a game and that's your option to stay alive in a regional, that's a pretty good option. So, those are the main guys for me. Josh Stewart, the Texas transfer.
He was good this weekend, right?
Yeah, I mean he was good. He's got the thing about him that's really interesting is a slider has like elite spin rates. I mean, it's like 2,900 to 30. I think I got one like 3,189 on his slider. The fastball, he decided to make a mistake and throw a 93-mile-an-hour heater, Hunter Hines, that went a very long way.
Right.
But yeah, the slider's a real pitch for him. So again, I kind of come away from the weekend feeling pretty good about both those teams. I did go to Huntsville on Sunday to watch the series finale, between Sam and Dallas Baptist. And, DBU didn't have their best day. They didn't look great to me. Chayton Krause is the one guy for them that stood out to me. Just a really physical presence in the box. Just hit an absolute mammoth home run for the Patriots. But other than that, they really didn't have a lot of offensive production. Grant Jay did hit a couple of balls really hard. Luke Pettit was solid on the mound, low 90s, decent slider. They still don't have James Owlinger, their talented freshman, who was up to 100 opening weekend. He's battling a little bit of nerve stuff, and they do expect him back. But it sounds like with Owlinger, it's going to be one of those things that like he's going to be pitching for 3 weeks, and he may be down for 2 weeks. He's going to be pitching for 3 weeks, and so on. So it's just a very kind of delicate situation. But they definitely looked the part. It's one of those things. I hesitate to say, oh, they look like a Big 12 or an SEC team. But they just have that look about them, right? Like you look across the field, and it's guys that are physical, long, long frames. They step in the box, they have your attention. So. I like their club, and then of course, seeing Houston, Jay Sirianni's done a really nice job with them. Just a couple of weeks ago, they sweep Texas State on the road, and then they fall just short over the weekend because of Ryan Johnson, the job that he did on the mound. But that's a really good team too. I think at the end of the year, we'll have a shot to make the postseason. It's likely an at-large team.
How was Walker Yannick in that year look? How do you play?
Yeah, he was just okay. It's a little bit different than when I saw him against Texas State. He had a home run against Texas State the day I was there, and I think that started off like a rash of I want to say he hit 4 home runs in 5 games after that. But he was pretty quiet the other day. The pitching staff really made him work back there. There were a few wild pitches, so it seemed like he was a little bit frustrated, but just an ultra talented player, man. Like he checks a lot of boxes for me.
Yep. It's so interesting. Dallas Baptist is, they've got a star position player in Grant Jay. They've got a star on the mound in Ryan Johnson. They're off to this crazy start. It's a bummer that you didn't see him on a good day. And I think you're right. Like they're going to need to have a Sunday starter not named James Owlinger. Like that's going to be tricky to manage. But know I'm trying to learn more about Dallas Baptist because I think they're this year's. This is not a good comp, but let me just finish it. This year's Oral Roberts, in that like they're just
Yeah.
not going anywhere. Like I just think they can trade punches with anybody. And again, it's like these schools. Like, is the new market inefficiency these schools with a religious affiliation, like a Dallas Baptist and Oral
Yeah.
Roberts? That's a little simplistic, I know, but like, man, like Ryan Johnson and Grant Jay, any roster in the country would want those two kids.
There's no doubt. That's the thing that he's created up there, though. You think
Yeah.
about, what's really funny, you go to their campus, and it's just like a really tiny campus in the middle of like, between Arlington and Dallas. And, it's like, wait, this place is really good at baseball. It's kind of odd, but like, Heath and those guys, man, they sold a culture. There's just a group of kids that want to go play there, and it's an attractive place to go play baseball. It's if your goal is to go to a school, religious or not, and like you have baseball in mind, like Dallas Baptist is perfect because there's not another sport there that they care about more than college baseball. So, yeah, I was a big fan of their club, and they're another team too. At the end of the year, they're going to be a very tough out because they're an older club. There's a lot of guys on that team that's seen a lot of at bats. I would not want them in a regional, and I would not want to be in the regional if they host one, which is very likely at this point. They've gotten through the toughest team on their schedule in conference, and their RPI sitting in the top 20. So they're, it's very early, but like they're in pretty good shape right now.
Yeah, it's and everything you said about DBU there, KR, it's like, they're Division II and all these other sports. Baseball is their premier sport. It's like hockey
Yeah.
at one of those northern schools, but it's baseball in the South. Their athletic director is really a neat guy, Matt Deuce, who's he played for Heath. And so he told a funny story at the Surefire Clinic this year, where he just said the president, when he named the athletic director, he said, all these coaches, you're their boss, except for Heath. He's your boss. And, and of course he played for Heath. And so here's what two stats I wanted to share with you. So regional streaks through 2023. Vandy's gone to regional 17 years in a row, Florida 15, LSU 11, Oklahoma State 10, Dallas Baptist 9. Dallas Baptist has the fifth longest regional streak in college baseball right now. And so, that's to your point. Here's the question I want to ask. I'm going to make myself answer it too, KR. So no league has ever gotten 11 teams in regionals, and that's probably going to change as we get these super conferences. But as we sit here today in 2024, 10 has been the limit, and it's only been done 5 times. The SEC did it in 2023, 2019, 2018, and 2014. The ACC did it in 2016. So here's the question, because the chaos is really I'm struggling with it. So that means if we say the SEC is going to get 10 teams in regionals, which is it's not common, it's hard, but let's give them the benefit of the doubt and say 10. Missouri's out, right? We know that. They know that. They're Carrick Jackson is building a culture right now. Like that, they've punted this year for culture. But who are the other 3 teams, KR? Like, who are the other 3 SEC teams that you're eliminating?
I think the SEC is getting 11 in this year.
Ooh, okay.
I'm going to say that. Like, I don't see. I mean, I will say, and I was talking to KP about this earlier. I will say that there are some teams out there in this league that, like, this weekend is huge. One of those teams I will probably see once this weekend. I do want to get my eyeballs on Auburn, and I also haven't seen Tanner Jones for A&M, so I'm probably going to go watch that middle game. But Auburn, as it stands, 1-5 in the SEC. They have rooms A&M on the road and then Tennessee at home the next 2 weekends.
Yep.
Let's just say they lose 2 out of 3 in those 2 series. Okay, you're sitting at 3-9 in the SEC.
Not fun.
And you still have to play Mississippi State, LSU, Ole Miss, Alabama. That is one of your teams if they lose those 2 series coming up the next 2 weeks.
Yep. And then
I would say that's one of your teams. That's one of your teams if they get swept this weekend at A&M, because I just don't think. I think Butch is a hell of a coach. I actually still like their roster. I think they've got a lot of potential. But I mean, if they get swept and they're 1-8, man, that is hard to come back from in that league.
Yep.
Or any league for that matter. I'm looking at TCU and the Big 12 on this one, by the way.
Yep, that's fair. And I think for Auburn, the starting pitching, to your point, just has not come together the way they were hoping for it to come together, and that creates a domino
The
effect.
A&M, going to A&M this weekend with your starting or your pitching as a whole just being erratic is not your recipe that you want.
No,
That especially, I think this weekend is supposed to be in the 80s with the wind blowing out. Yeah, that may not turn out very well.
no, that's going to be tricky. All
So
right, so
that's two. So we've got two.
Yeah,
So
I would lose Georgia just because I mean I know they just swept
Okay.
Alabama, but
Yeah.
and I would hate to have a national tournament without Charlie Condon, but I think I am having a tough time unseeing Georgia get run off the field 3 times by Kentucky. Because I just don't think Kentucky's that type of team. But I mean,
Yeah, well,
Georgia.
here's my thing on Georgia. I think we're going to find out a lot about the Bulldogs this weekend. And here's the thing. Like I think told somebody this on Twitter. This weekend is like my litmus test on Georgia. I don't need Georgia to go up to Knoxville and win this series, but what I want to see from Georgia is them to go up there and this to be a competitive series. If Georgia goes to Knoxville this weekend and that's a competitive 3-game series, I may actually look at that team and go, you know what, like they probably have staying power.
Yeah.
Because that's a tough place to go play, especially when you look at those guys from an offensive standpoint. So I think for me, it's not the results. It's more so like how do they look against Tennessee? Does it look like Tennessee is remarkably better than they are?
Yeah, very fair. Yeah, because it's like, I don't want to bet against any of those teams. I don't want to get a bet against Ole Miss. I don't want to bet against Georgia, Kentucky.
Yeah.
But somebody's got to lose the games. That's the problem in that league.
Could it be? I mean, this sounds outrageous right now, but could it be LSU?
I don't think
LSU is 2-4. They go to Arkansas. They have Vandy at home. I think they'll win that series. And then they're at Tennessee.
Ain't gonna be easy.
It ain't gonna be easy, but I tell you what, I said something about this earlier today. But if I was Arkansas, I get it. Hogs playing well, Hogs at home. But if I was Arkansas, the last team I want to see is an LSU team that would be losing 3 state series if they lose this weekend.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Whatever
Arkansas those guys is backed up against the wall.
I'm with you.
So, I mean, I don't think it's LSU, but I mean, it's got to be somebody, right? Could it be Alabama?
That was a little jarring to see Alabama swept this weekend, but I mean, I don't know. I think that's the point. It's so hard. Like it's just
they're getting 11 teams in. We can't even come up with 3.
Yep. And that would break
so
a
they're
record,
getting
as
11
we said.
in.
Yep.
Yeah. Well, the other thing too. So the other thing too, and this is where I'm not saying they're getting 11 in only because I think the SEC is incredible. Well, it's also because there's some other leagues that aren't very good right now. The Big 12, they're beating each other up right now. There's a lot of bad RPIs in that league. The Pac-12. Why don't we just go through the Pac-12 real quick while we're talking about the Pac-12? So the Pac-12, they are the number 4 conference RPI. I need the Nerdmaster General Mark to actually tell me why this is the case. But here are some RPIs in the Pac-12 right now, guys. Stanford, 186. I don't know how it's even possible for Stanford to be 186 in the RPI. You got UCLA at 164, USC 173, Arizona State 127. They're losing as we record this to UNLV. Washington 93, Washington State 97, Oregon 62. Oregon's going to get in. Like Oregon's a good team, but like right now, the Pac-12, the best case scenario for the Pac-12, legitimately right now is 4.
Yep.
Because all those other teams are in the 90s or the hundreds. Even now, there's no way they're getting in the top 40, which is where a Pac-12 team probably needs to be. Top 45.
Yeah.
Top 50.
This is a jarring stat on the Pac-12, Kendall. There's 11 teams that play baseball. There are more teams under 500 with their overall record than there are over 500. The Pac-12 has 6 teams that aren't even 500 in their overall record. And it's a power league. Like it's the craziest year ever. So here's my first conference question for you, Kendall. Let's stay on the Pac-12.
Sure.
Oregon State we know they're awesome. Oregon, I think, has proven themselves plenty, right? They've won 3 straight
Yeah,
series.
I like that club a lot.
Me too. Yeah, they got a little bit of everything, and they've got some program
Mhm.
momentum. I'm a believer. If you had to now, don't worry about record. Don't worry about where they are today. If you had to bet on a roster from here, everybody else besides Oregon State are 0-0. Bet on a roster going forward. Who's your third team in the pack? Who do you like? Everybody's 0-0. Who do you like from here, from today forward?
I still like Cal. I mean, I like their star power. I think a lineup with Rodney Green Jr. and you got Caleb Lomavita.
Yep.
Like, I would not want to play those guys in a regional. That's the way I look at teams. Is like, if I was a coach, who would I not want to play in a regional? And
Hmm.
Cal would be one of those teams. I think I made this comment a while back on our pod, or maybe it was even in chat. But Cal reminds me of that California team that went to College Station, that regional. You
Hmm.
remember the A&M just had to like scratch, and they went to like 2 extra inning games. It was that year that Cal had like Lucas Ursig and those guys. And what they did, very similar to this team, they had like 2 or 3 really good players, and they gave an SEC team absolute fits that weekend. So I think Cal's very similar. I think they could go to an SEC venue. I think if they could go to a Big 12 or ACC venue and cause a world of hurt to a team.
Yep. I'm with you. Cal's the right answer. I wish I felt more confident in their pitching. I wish Ian May was back. I don't know what the status of that is. If he comes back, boy, Cal gets a real shot in the arm. They're ace left-hander. But ironically, the other 2 above 500 teams are Utah and Washington State. Just don't
Yeah.
know if they're staying power, but they're certainly having excellent years. By the way,
Yeah, I
that's going to
mean,
be. Oh, go ahead.
yeah.
Go ahead, Kendall.
No, I was going to say, yeah, Nathan Scho's done a really nice job there. That's a program that, it would be easy when you lose Hainline to Oregon State, you lose your head coach to Wichita State. Wichita State, I mean, they've got history, right? But like when you're a Pac-12 school at the time and you lose your coach to, Wichita State, it's a gut punch a little bit. And, I feel like, Schroeder's done a really nice job up there to have those guys sitting at 15-8.
Yep. Yeah, and I we've said this many times on the pod, but Utah, I think they're old and they're are they a regional team? It's hard to say, but I think they're gonna at
Yeah,
least they'll be in it till the end. And it
22 in
just
the RPI.
yeah, and Gary Henderson, just the perfect coach for that place. I mean, just that was an excellent promotion. Kendall, let's go to the Big 12. You started us down this path. So here, same game, right? So this league is in
Mhm.
total chaos. Like even worse than like the Pac-12 is less chaotic because it's just so discouraging. The Big 12 is chaotic because it's like you look at their standings and you can't even believe like how is TCU in last place
By
in the Big
5
12?
games.
Yeah, it's crazy. So here's my question. Same game. Everybody in the Big 12 is 0-0 today, March 25th. What roster do you want to ride with? Because none of them are eliminated, right? Like TCU's in last place. They'd be a regional team today, I think. But what roster do you want
Maybe.
going forward?
Well, if it's going forward from today, I don't really like the way TCU's playing. Offensively, they're hitting 193 in conference.
Yikes.
That's no bueno. Um, I really like Oregon State. I really like what Oklahoma State's doing right now. Nolan Schubert's finally back in the lineup, and granted, he didn't have like a crazy loud weekend against TCU, but I'm a believer in their offense when he's in that lineup. I think Rob Walton's done a really nice job with their pitching staff. I feel like Oklahoma State's one of those teams that the last couple of years we've like gone after their pitching, like, oh, their pitching's not good enough, right? Well, I think this is a year where I think their pitching has done a really nice job, especially the last couple of weeks. And if they can pitch again, I like that lineup with guys like Schubert and whatnot.
Yep, I like that. Yeah, that's a good call. I watched some of Oklahoma State TCU, and you're right. Oklahoma
Yeah,
State's right. They moved Carson Bench from starter to closer. I actually love that. Like, I think that's perfect for him.
yeah,
They're getting healthier. I still would pick TCU. I saw them when they were really good, and I love Peyton Tolley. I think there's a good. Yeah, I just think I like that roster, but you're right. Like they're 2-7 in the league. It's just, by the way, Big 12. Not to just pick on the Pac-12, but the Big 12 has 13 teams and only one is under 500. So like I think that helps everybody
yeah.
in that league right there.
67% winning percentage.
Yep. And I
out
think
of
Kansas
conference.
State's legitimately a regional team. I don't think they're going to win the regular season. I don't know. It'll be interesting.
Yeah, I kind of wonder if they have enough pitching, but I'll say this: they got Tyson Neighbors back over the weekend against
Yeah.
Houston. That was big. I want to say he won a couple innings for them. But there's some other programs that there to keep an eye on. I mean, Texas Tech. I mean, they haven't been very good as of late, but we also know they have talent offensively. Texas, who knows what in the world to expect from them? But I'll give Texas this. They moved Whitehead to the rotation. He's done a really nice job the last couple of weeks, and of course Max Grubbs, who they moved the rotation, has done a nice job too. That's a
Yep.
big series coming up this weekend against Kansas State. I still like Oklahoma's team if they can get healthy. Right now they have John Spikerman out with an injury. They're going to need to get him back. It sounds like Kyson Witherspoon's going to end up moving to the starting rotation. So I do like Oklahoma's team, and then keep an eye on Rich Wallace's UCF club. Kind of a strange club in the sense that their resume is not incredible, but they do have a series win over Oklahoma State. They do have a singular win over Florida, and their RPI runs is at 6.
Whoa.
So I mean, as of right now, they'd be a slam dunk postseason team.
Yeah. You know what's funny? Like, to put a bow on this, like the Pac-12's chaos is discouraging to me. I had very high hopes, and I'm just bummed to see all these
Yeah.
teams spinning their wheels. The Big 12's chaos, I think, is going to be a blast. Like, I think the
Yeah,
stretch
it's
run the
fun
Big 12,
chaos. Like it's a bunch of
yeah,
teams who like they're beating up on each other, but I don't think there's like a awful team in this league. I mean, Baylor's at 8-15, but I would actually argue that Baylor on the weekend they just don't have depth. Like if you look at their midweek scores, it's a disaster. They just don't have a lot of pitching depth. But on the weekend, they're actually playing pretty competitive. And then BYU wins the series against Houston, and then they go on the road and give Texas Tech all they can handle last week. So I mean, even BYU with a first-year head coach, has been pretty competitive.
yep. Hey, let's do a couple more leagues, and then we'll do some fun stuff too. So I'll go first on this one. In the ACC, if we made
Mm,
everybody 0-0, and I could have any roster going forward, and I love Clemson's team, I actually wouldn't take them. I would take Duke. I
yeah,
Duke being 4-5 blows my mind. They've had some weird losses. I'm actually really sold on them. I don't think Fran O'Shea's going to struggle all year. I don't think Charlie Bielenson is done, even though he needs a break. James Talon was really good this weekend. I just like I don't I think Duke is they usually overachieve. I think they've underachieved so far. And I like that roster. Now, again, I think the ACC is going to be fun too because it's really
yeah.
hard to see who the best team is.
Yeah, I would agree with you on Duke. I mean, the biggest thing for me is like, Bielenson over the weekend, I want to say give up 6 or 7 runs in an inning of 2/3 against NC State. I'll be very curious to see if that continues. The biggest thing for him is, Fit pointed this out last night, but like they've had to use him a lot early this season in some
Mm-hmm.
big situations. And I'll just be curious to see if he starts to struggle a little bit. If I wouldn't say he's worn out or anything, but like, is he being used a lot, and is he just having trouble bouncing back? So I don't think that's going to be the case. But yeah, that's the only question mark I have. But I'm with you on Duke. I mean, the other team for me, I was talking to a couple of coaches that have faced them, and I get it. Like their bullpen was just awful over the weekend. But I mean, Florida State is really intriguing, and their lineup's very scary. I mean, we could talk all day about their bullpen against Clemson, but they also were put in a position where they were like blowing Clemson out in a couple of those games early on. So it's like a double-edged sword, right? Like they were unable to seal the deal with the bullpen, but the starting pitching and then the offensive lineup at least gave them a huge lead. So I'm very curious to see what Florida State does moving forward because it sounds like their offense is outstanding. James Tibbs has been terrific. Marco Dingus has been really good as well. And then Jamie Arnold, I think Fitt's going to have a little bit more on him later in the week, but he's been electric on the mound this year for them. So Florida State's really intriguing to me as well.
Yep. Yeah, really good. The ACC, like the Big 12, is going to be fascinating. All right, Kendall, Big 10. Iowa sits here at 13-10. They lost their Brody Breck start to Purdue, but they came back and won the series. So if I made you bet on one Big 10 team, would you bet on for the postseason, make the postseason and do well? Would you bet on Iowa, or now are you like more thinking about Maryland, Rutgers, Nebraska, somebody just completely different?
I think I'm going Nebraska. I like their club opening weekend. I thought they had enough in the starting rotation. I like the middle of their lineup with Carey and Overbeek and guys like that. I thought they had some nice weapons out of the bullpen. That's a team with some depth, and if you're deep, you got a shot to not only make a regional but also win one. So I would go in Nebraska. I think you might have pointed it out, but like Marcus Morgan is an issue for Iowa. Didn't you say his ERA is like over 7 or something?
Yeah, it was way up there. Now they skipped him on Saturday, but they did start him on Sunday and they won the game. But it was like 4 innings. But yes, he's still walking guys, but he's not missing bats either. That used to bail him out. It's like he'd walk a bunch of people, but he'd punch a lot of
Yeah.
people out. And now he's given up a lot of hits and a lot of walks.
Yeah, it just feels like, and again, like Rick Hiller's an awesome coach. It wouldn't really shock me if they turned it around, but it just seems like every single weekend for Iowa right now is a struggle.
Yep.
And when that's the case, it worries me a little bit.
Yeah, the fact that they came back and won the series against Purdue gave me new
Yeah.
like I was out, to be honest. Like I was kind of done with Iowa, and that has piqued my interest. But because I still do like the talent on the roster, like you said. Last one, Kendall, Sun Belt. By the way, Georgia State is 5-11 in the Sun Belt. Louisiana has been sneaking around. They're now 5-1 in the Sun Belt. The Sun Belt series there's a lot of really good action in the Sun Belt this weekend. And we'll save that for the preview. But what do you have a gut feel team in the Sun Belt, KR, or still trying to sift through the chaos?
My gut feel team, and I'm not just saying this because I'm married to a Bobcat, but I actually really, really like Texas State's team. The weekend I saw them against Sam Houston, the day I was there, they were just not very offensive. They've played much better the last couple of weeks. I like the middle of that lineup with Chase Mora. You look at Dalen Pena and guys like that. That's a really solid nucleus in the lineup. And when you look at Eaton and whatnot, I think they have enough arms. It's just their offense at times has kind of gone out the window. But yeah, I like their offense. I think Texas State's kind of a team for me. It didn't Southern Miss. I mean, I know they had a weird weekend at Georgia Southern. I kind of feel like Georgia Southern was a little bit due over the weekend. They haven't been very good. But Southern Miss, when you look at the front of the rotation with Nico Mazza, and Billy Oldham, I mean, when you have that kind of 1-2 punch in the rotation, you can win a regional, and so they're obviously pretty dangerous.
Yeah, the Sun Belt West is wild to me. Like Louisiana, Southern Miss, Texas State, Troy, South Alabama. Like those are all brand names that are having
It's
good
very Big
years.
12 esque.
Yeah, it's
You know what I
hard.
mean? Like it's very Big
Yeah,
12 esque in the sense that like if you look at all of those teams all the way down to ODU, there's not a bad team there. Like
no,
even
yeah,
JMU is a really good club. Troy RPI is 133, but we all know Troy has talent.
yeah. It's a pardon my French, but it's a badass league. I mean, it just is. It's just awesome. It's
Yes.
an awesome
Yeah,
league.
and Troy too. Troy too. The other thing for me, the second half of the season, and I'd have to pull it up real quick, but Shane Lewis, getting him back for another year was huge for them. But Shane Lewis is a guy that the second half of the season is really going to have to step up because I mean, if you look at his numbers, and I'm trying to pull it up right now on our site, it's taking a little bit of time, but I want to say, he's hitting 167 with
Yep.
4 home runs and 10 RBIs. I just don't think that's gonna stay. Like I think he's gonna get it, put things together the second half of the season.
Yep. By the way, I will preview it. Like so, some of the big series in the Sun Belt this weekend: South Al at Old Dominion, Troy at
Mm.
Southern Miss is huge, and then Louisiana at Texas State is another huge one. So that will be really fun. All right, Kara, let's wrap with this. So I wrote down today some of the really fun things that I've seen in college baseball this year, and here are some of them. And I'm gonna this is the menu. And I want you to tell me
Okay.
what's one of the most fun things you've seen. And you can go off menu if you want, like I said. Travis Bazzana, as we sit here tonight, has led off the game with he's led off 4 straight games
Yeah.
with a home run. He hits leadoff for Oregon State, some of our home games. His first at bat has been a home run in 4 straight games. Travis Bazzana is awesome. Charlie Condon is just going crazy this year. He had a home run on Saturday where he was totally hacked off at the umpire during the at-bat.
Mhm.
He was still bickering with the umpire and then got a breaking ball up and hit it over the batter's eye and then just like threw his bat at his own dugout. And it was the best dismount of the year. So that to me was an all-time great moment. I'm a sucker for Long Beach State and Fullerton. That rivalry is one of my favorites. Fullerton was at Long Beach this weekend. And, even though both teams are a little bit down, the crowds were awesome. So that was a really cool thing. I saw that the atmosphere and the crowds at Blair Field pumped me up. Another concept is all the comebacks we saw this weekend. NC State against Duke, Clemson against Florida State twice. Another one that's really cool, Wyatt Langford played in Omaha last year, and
How about that?
made an opening day roster for the Rangers. Hagen Burns. That's the answer. Hagen Smith and Chase Burns, like just being appointment television every time out. We talked about Hayden Schott and A&M's Fungo Golf. I just was talking about the Ivy League kids who are doing so well. Ben Miller at Duke. So of that menu, KR, and you can go off script if you want. Is there one of those things that's particularly warm and fuzzy to you of those feel good things going on?
Yeah, dude, I go with the Chase Burns and Hagen Smith because I think after last year, the way Paul Skeens captivated, not only college baseball but captivated baseball in general was special, right? Like, I mean, that was incredible. And what's kind of insane is like Chase and Hagen are really, really good, but they're still not Paul Skeens.
Yeah.
And the fact is, if you look at Chase right now, 68 strikeouts and 37 in the third innings. 62 strikeouts is 29 innings for Hagen Smith. Both of those guys have been absolutely unhittable and absolutely unbeatable. And so just to see how they progress this season and if that trend continues will be really cool, because I thought after last year we wouldn't get us, we would not get a Skeens like kind of year. And both of those are at least in the area code of Paul Skeens, which is, hey, you know what? I'll take it.
Yeah, yeah, and it's just like their stuff is so like you can't take your eyes off it. It's just so good. And by the way, neither of them
Well,
leading the
yeah,
country in strikeouts. That's Riley Hughes of Winthrop. I think is a lefty
yeah.
who's got 71 strikeouts in 37 innings, which is amazing.
You know how hard it is to have a 1.24 ERA in today's college baseball?
Yeah, you basically
It's
have to
very
never.
difficult.
Yeah, like you have to stay off the bat. Like you have to have swing and
To
miss.
give you an idea of how hard it is to have a 1.24 ERA, let me just tell you what Blake Wright for Clemson did over the last week.
Oh yeah, it's amazing.
13 hits, 6 home runs, 2 walks, 21 RBIs in 1 week.
It's
And
crazy.
yet these two guys have an ERA well under 2.
Yep. Yeah, it's a 15-week season. My man Blake Wright had 21 RBIs. That would be 300 RBIs, which we know is
The only person who
crazy.
lives life like Blake Wright is Charlie Condon.
Yeah. Yeah, that's well said. And let's wrap there, Kendall. Like the Charlie Condon thing is just awesome. The dude 2 summers ago was grinding it out in the Northwoods League, just trying to catch up on ABs. If you have not watched, if you're listening to me and you haven't done this, George's Twitter handle has his home run from Saturday. It's just it's a great moment. And then the Wyatt Langford thing, I put this on Twitter, a retweet of him being called into Bruce Bochy's office and being told he made the big league club. I mean, again, a kid that had 4 at bats as a freshman in 2021. And it's easy to forget last year, Kendall, Wyatt Langford had a really serious injury in an area of the male apparatus that you don't want an injury and had to get
Yeah,
back, like it wasn't like his junior year was just like all
yeah.
blaze of glory from the get-go. Like he had to fight through some stuff.
Yeah, I'll be very curious to see. And he's going to get Charlie Condon's going to get this when in the draft is compared to Wyatt just because he was redshirted. But I'll be very curious to follow his progression to the next level versus Wyatt Langford. I mean, Langford's a freak. The thing about him that's so awesome, like he's a great hitter, right? He's a great power hitter. But I thought the coolest thing about that video the Rangers put out was like how professional he was about it. Like,
Mm-hmm.
you see, and again, I'm not saying like if you cry or you're like, oh my God, I got to the big leagues, like that's wrong. It's not. But the fact that he's just like, oh, that sounds great. Like he doesn't just hope to get there. Like he thinks he should be there.
Yep.
And it's just cool to see a guy with that kind of mindset.
Yeah, it's always been my favorite thing about college sports and college baseball in particular is just kind of redemption stories, like people that have kind of worn it and then
Yeah.
bounce back from that. And like we say it so much, but Langford and Charlie Condon really had to earn this. Like this is, I just think about being that level of talent, and your freshman year, you just don't play. Like you just literally can't get on the field, and then 2 years later, you're the best player on the field every single day. Just incredible.
Yeah, well, yeah, and it doesn't stop with those guys. I mean, you think back to Condon last summer. With the coaching change, Charlie Condon could have gone anywhere and probably could have just named his price tag, right? But he stuck it out. I was just talking to somebody yesterday in Huntsville about Walker Yannick. I mean, Walker Yannick is a mid-major catcher who could have gone to A&M, could have gone to Texas, could have gone to Arkansas, could have gone to LSU, but he stayed put at Sam Houston to kind of make a legend of himself there. So it's pretty cool to see.
Yep. Last thing for you, Kendall. So speaking of this, a perfect segue by you. Good
Sure.
instincts. Kyle Halleck of Bowling Green, their head coach. So Coach Farron and I got to speak to him today for our SiriusXM show. And so Kyle Halleck, the head coach at Bowling Green, what I didn't know about him, so Bowling Green is 9-0 in the MAC right now. And remember, they dropped baseball during the pandemic and then had to fundraise to save the program. That wasn't that long
Yeah.
ago. They're in first place in the MAC. What I didn't know is that Kyle Halleck was a pitcher on those Kent State teams. '09,
Yeah.
'08.
Yeah.
Actually, I'm sorry, 2000, like 9, 10, and 11. He graduated right before the 2012 team that went
So was
to
he with Chafin?
yeah, he was in the
Okay.
rotation, and so he played for Scott Strickland and Mike Birkbeck and Scott Daly, and he
Pretty
reveres
good
those
stuff.
guys. I had chills as he was telling us a story about, we asked him, like, what was the difference between your three
Mhm.
teams that lost in a regional and the team that made it to Omaha? And he's like, well, my freshman year or my sophomore year, our '09 team got sent to Arizona State, and it's Mike Leake, Josh Spence, Jason Kipnis, Cole Calhoun, like, sorry,
Decent
like,
team.
yeah. And then he said in
Was Wally
2000,
on that team too?
no, Wally's last year was 2008 with like Davis,
Oh,
and
okay.
yeah, the year before. And then 2010, I'm losing track of where they got sent. It'll come to me in a second.
It was
2011,
Austin, wasn't it?
uh, that was 2011, and
Oh, okay, because
they
they
had
had
to
to
face,
because
face
Chafin
Taylor
went against
Youngman.
Taylor Youngman. I want to
Yeah,
say I
and
I can't remember. That was a long time ago.
No, you're right. You're right. And Youngman had
Oh,
never
okay.
lost a game in Austin. He had never lost a home game, and they're facing him in a regional. They went 2-0 in that regional, and then just. But anyway, he just said, like, we just kept getting these terrible draws, and
Yeah.
so anyway, it was like Bowling Green is my new favorite under the radar story, like, to follow him, and Kyle Halleck is all over my radar as far as, like, man, what a sharp coach. Like, it became very clear very quickly why Bowling Green is doing so well.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, I'll say this about Kyle Halleck is if he can get Bowling Green in the postseason, Bowling Green better enjoy Kyle Halleck because he will not be there very long.
Yeah, yeah, it's and I just think it's I'm a sucker for, like, he was a student under like Mike Birkbeck and Scott Strickland and Scott Daly
Yeah,
and all those guys, and like, obviously what a great run that they had at at Kent State. So Kyle, I'll wrap with this, or I'll wrap put a bow on this with this. He was
sure.
saying how Mike Birkbeck, the famous pitching coach at Kent State. If you don't know, Mike Birkbeck pitched in the big leagues. I mean, he's always been part of the secret sauce there. So Kyle Halleck, he photocopied and kept every practice plan from when he was at Kent State. And Birkbeck said, "You're not the smartest player that's ever played for me, but that's one of the smartest things I've ever seen a player do." Which was so awesome. By the way, their 2010 team. So it was Tempe, their first regional. 2010, they got sent to LA for Bauer and Cole, UCLA. So, like, that was a problem. They finished second in the country. So cool. Oh, I loved it.
Yeah, the committee did them no favors playing Bauer, Cole, Arizona State at that time, and Texas at that time.
Yeah, yeah, just crazy. So, KR, what do you got? You got any coupons for the peoples?
Yeah, man, 24 season at checkout. That'll get you 24% off any package, or you can do Joe Healy 24, and that'll add $2,400 onto your package.
Yeah. We need to get the story from Joe about why it's called Weekend Waypoints. I don't even know what a waypoint is. It's another one of those big
That
words
is a
he's
good
always
name.
using.
You know what? So, by the way, speaking of Joe, when I was at Sam Houston this past weekend, I did meander into the bathroom to see if Joe has sponsored the bathroom, and he has not done that yet.
Not
So he
yet.
has not gone full Kurt Reed on us.
Yeah, come on, Joe, get on it. So very cool. All right, well, so there it is. There's your coupon. Again, I'm just telling you, it will watching college baseball with our website will change your life. Fall reports, like for instance, tomorrow night I've got Illinois and Mizzou, and for me, they've been under the radar. So to be able to go back and research those teams, seeing those advanced
Yeah.
stats from 643, the DSR stuff is fascinating. It's going to get more fascinating as we
Yeah,
get
power
more and
rankings
more.
this week.
Yeah, power rankings for players.
That's
So
what Fitzy's doing right now. He's working on that, getting that ready for us.
yes, gotta love it. So that is it. Let's wrap it there, KR. It was a pleasure. Everybody have a great week. We'll catch you on the Thursday night preview show, and that's it. We'll catch you next time on the D1 Baseball Podcast.